Okay, let's just jump right into this. We are looking at an absolutely chilling explainer today, tracking a terrifying sequence of events that happened to two friends, Komal and Bhumi. So Komal is an aspiring writer, right? She decides to visit the famous Manikarnika Ghat in Benares to experience the raw reality of mortality firsthand and, write an article about it. But as we're going to see, what she brought back from that ancient site was, well, it was way more than just a story. It was a literal nightmare. And to really set the stage, take a look at this incredibly heavy piece of wisdom they received while riding the train to Benares. An elderly woman who was traveling completely by herself drops this profound truth. Until a person pays off their karma, they've just got to keep being reborn. Now, at the time, this just feels like a deep, casual conversation, but honestly, it was actually a deeply ominous warning of what was to come. So, to really grasp why this haunting went down the way it did, we need to understand the ultimate stakes at this specific location. We're talking about moksha. For believers traveling to Manikarnika Ghat, moksha isn't just some abstract concept. It is the absolute finish line. It means you are completely free from the cycle of death and rebirth. You don't have to return to the mortal world to suffer anymore. In fact, the woman on the train mentioned that her own husband had secured this exact liberation by being cremated at this very ghat. That's why this place holds such immense, almost tangible spiritual power. The source material actually describes Benares as a place where you become completely empty. It's definitely not your typical tourist destination. At the Manikarnika Ghats, hundreds of pyres have literally burned nonstop for years. It's an overwhelming visceral reminder that death is the one absolute truth we all have to face. The whole atmosphere there is just incredibly heavy with the weight of transitioning souls. So back to the train. 60. That was the age of the mysterious woman traveling alone. She opened up to the girls, explaining that her husband had passed away the year before and her children were living abroad. She was basically navigating the twilight of her life, totally isolated. But man, she had this intensely deep understanding of spiritual laws, knowledge that she passed directly to Como right before things took a very dark turn. And she wasn't just making small talk either. She was unknowingly handing Komal the literal rule book for the afterlife. She laid it all out. If someone dies an unnatural death, or if they pass away carrying deep, unfulfilled desires, they don't just magically move on. No, they get trapped. They turn into wandering spirits stuck on the mortal plane until their exact, divinely appointed time for liberation rolls around. Komal is actually sitting there, diligently taking notes in her diary, completely oblivious to the fact that she's getting a crash course on the exact entity that's about to attach itself to her. Okay, so here's where the tension really spikes. Somewhere between the dead of night and their 4 a.m. arrival, this 60-year-old woman just straight up vanishes. Kamal had actually set her alarm for 3:30 a.m. to get ready for their stop. But when she wakes up, the seat across from her is totally empty. The girls wait around for a bit, thinking maybe she just went to dodge a ticket inspector or something. But no, she was gone. No goodbyes, literally no trace left behind. All right, moving into the next phase of this explainer. The mistake near the pyres. The girls finally arrive at the ghat around 7 p.m., and they are immediately met with the sight of 10 pyres burning all at once. The source notes that this was such an overwhelming, intense visual that it completely paralyzed Komal. Remember, she came all this way specifically to write an article, but faced with the blistering heat and the raw, unedited reality of mortality right in front of her, she completely freezes up. She couldn't write a single word. And then, inexplicably drawn toward the intense flames, the girls make a massive mistake. They break a cardinal rule and walk right up to the burning pyres. Now, local priest actually spots them, scolds them for being there, and hurries off to grab holy Ganjajal water to cleanse them. But in a totally fatal misstep, the girls wander away before he even gets back, leaving themselves completely spiritually unprotected in one of the most intense energy centers in the world. Let's look at how fast things spiral once they get back to the hotel. It's a rapid escalation from eerie vibes to absolute violence. That very same night, Kamal is feeling incredibly restless, like something followed her back from the flames. At 1:30 a.m., she looks out and sees a woman with long, messy hair sitting on their balcony swing, singing this creepy, melancholic song. And by the next night, that presence doesn't just haunt Kamal from a distance, it takes total physical control of her body. Just look at this contrast because it is terrifying. We go from a slightly spooked tourist jotting notes in her diary to an entirely different entity. We're talking about a girl suddenly speaking in unknown languages, singing strange songs, and showing off this unnatural, terrifying physical strength. It hits every classic marker of a full-blown spiritual possession. Bhumi is watching her best friend disappear, replaced by something that speaks the language she's never even heard before. And the absolute peak of this terror happens in a pitch-black hotel room. Kamal clicks on her phone's flashlight, and standing right there is the 60-year-old woman from the train. But she's just smiling this weird, sinister smile before she literally turns into smoke and forces her way into Kamal's body. Boom. That's the moment all the pieces click. The friendly lady from the train? Yeah, she was never a living passenger. She was a spirit the entire time. Things inside that hotel room immediately turn into a brutal fight for survival. First, Como tries to throw herself over the balcony railing. When Bhumi frantically pulls her back, the spirit fully takes over and violently attacks her. The spirit actually speaks through Como, threatening to kill Bhumi right then and there. The only way Bhumi stops it is by grabbing a wooden chair, hitting Komal's leg to disable her, and physically barricading her inside the bathroom. So Bhumi sprints down to the reception in a total panic. When the hotel staff finally smash the bathroom door open, it is a gruesome scene. Komal is collapsed on the floor, her face covered in blood, pierced with shards of shattered glass from the shower door. Her pulse is barely there. Realizing she's in critical condition, the staff immediately load her into a car to rush her to the nearest hospital. But right in the middle of this frantic drive, Komal's eyes just snap wide open. With terrifying, unnatural strength, she lunges and grabs Bhumi by the throat. And the spirit inside her delivers a totally non-negotiable threat. Turn this car around to the Ghats, or neither of you will survive. There is absolutely no reasoning with it. The destination instantly shifts from the hospital back to the nightmare. This brings us to the final part of our explainer, the exorcism, and the terrifying truth behind it all. So they arrive back at the pyres, and thankfully, the exact same priest who tried to warn them earlier is there to intervene. The second he splashes holy Ganga Jal onto Komal's skin, her entire body convulses. He immediately takes charge, fiercely reminding the spirit that it is standing at Manikarnika, a place of ultimate truth where dark entities have absolutely zero power. And with that authority, he forces the spirit to reveal exactly why it's there. And this is where the story shifts from a standard haunting into a really profound tragedy. It proves exactly what the woman said on the train: unfulfilled desires trap the soul. Speaking through Komal, the spirit confesses that she was a mother who died entirely alone in an old age home. Her son had sold all their property, moved overseas, and didn't even bother coming back for her funeral. She only attached herself to Komal on the train because she was just so agonizingly lonely. But wait, here is the craziest twist of the whole account. That elderly woman Komal and Bhumi were chatting with, her actual physical corpse was literally in the cargo hold of that exact same train, being transported to Benares by the old age home staff for her final rites. Her spirit was wandering the passenger cars because she couldn't cross over. She was still desperately waiting for a son who was never going to show up. And when her body was finally burned at the Ghats, her spirit saw Komal again and just followed her right back to the hotel. To end the nightmare, the priest places his hand firmly on Komal's head and begins reciting the Mahamrityunjay mantra. It's a deeply powerful, ancient chant designed to conquer death. And it works. The intense spiritual energy of the Ghat, combined with the mantra, totally severs that tether of earthly grief. It finally pushes the wandering mother's soul toward peace, granting her the moksha she wanted, and completely releasing Komal from her grip. The source notes that even years later, Komal and Bhumi will never ever forget the horrors they lived through. Sure, they survived and made it home, but their fundamental understanding of the world, of mortality, and of what actually happens after we take our final breath, that was permanently rewritten by what they faced on the Ghats of Benares. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a rather haunting thought to chew on. Can the deep grief of a completely unfulfilled life truly tether a soul to the living? This account really isn't just about a scary ghost. It's a profound look into how loneliness, betrayal, and our earthly attachments might just follow us way beyond the grave. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this incredible story today. See you next time.